Hi, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited to have you join us on this webinar. My name is Janice Theodoropoulos, and I'm a board-certified behavior analyst and clinical supervisor at Woodview Mental Health and Autism Services. I have worked servicing families with autism spectrum disorder for the better part of a decade with a focus on early intervention, caregiver coaching, and community education. I'm happy to have been invited here by the Ontario Association for Behavior Analysis and Autism Ontario to speak today on the ABCs of increasing safety and self-protection skills during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's get started. First of all, I just want to let you know that this webinar is pre-recorded, so please feel free at any time to ask questions in the chat box below. I'm going to be live while you're all doing this monitoring and answering questions as you go through. Just a couple of disclaimers. The purpose of this presentation is to provide general strategies based on the principles of ABA. And my own professional experience. I'm going to do my best to answer all the questions in the chat box. The issue is that I will not be able to provide specific answers to very specific questions. As a board-certified behavior analyst, it's vital for the safety of our clients and community that I do not try to provide specific solutions to any family or client's issues without assessing them in depth first. All examples of visuals in this presentation are linked to the original content creators. You'll see that in the resources file below the screen. All right, just another note, there will be lots of people on this webinar, so I will try to get to as many questions as I can, and just keep in mind to ask them throughout the presentation. There won't be enough time if we wait till the end. All right, our learning objectives. So as we all know, coronavirus has changed our lives significantly over the past several months, and unfortunately it doesn't look like its ability to affect change in our communities and in our homes will end anytime soon. It's critical that we all have some resources to help teach coronavirus-related safety skills to our children and youth with autism spectrum disorder. So in that note, we're going to focus on 3 specific areas. We'll focus first on antecedent or proactive strategies to help our children and youth engage in COVID-related safety skills, make it easier and more fun for them to do so. Teaching those safety skills with modeling and prompting, and using positive consequences to increase and encourage their engagement to do these skills as often as is necessary. So, what skills do we need to have to keep ourselves safe? This presentation will focus on 3 key behaviors that have become more critical to our health as the coronavirus has emerged. We're going to talk about coughing and sneezing safely, so that will be using your elbow, your sleeve, or a tissue to cough and sneeze into, physical distancing, so remaining at least 6 feet away from people who don't live in your home, and washing our hands. And we'll go through kind of each of those pieces as we move through the presentation to give you more information on both those skills and how we can learn how to do them. All right, so these are the top 3 skills recommended to us by organizations such as Public Health Ontario, Health Canada, the CDC, and the World Health Organization. Let's get started. So remember, and ask lots of questions in the Q&A box below all the way throughout the presentation, as this is pre-recorded. We'll start with our antecedent, proactive strategies. So the idea behind employing proactive strategies is to change the environment to make it easier and more fun for our children and youth to engage in these skills that we need them to show to keep themselves and their families and their communities safe from coronavirus. So I'll try to provide lots of different examples for children and youth who are both older, younger, different skill levels, I've kept a lot of these examples pretty broad. I know you as parents know and understand your children best, so I'm hoping that by giving broad examples, you will be able to apply those in your own situations. So the 4 different areas we're going to go through, talking about setting up the environment, using clear instructions, developing visual supports, and giving choice and including personal preferences. Setting up the environment. So this really just refers to preparing all the materials you need and making it easy to access when it comes time to do the skill. You'll want the materials to be on hand, and thinking about your child and you specifically. If you have a very young child, you'll want to have all these things on hand, but you may want to have them up out of reach until you need to have them engage in the skills, or you may want to just have them available in every room depending on where your child or youth is at. So for hand washing, this really means having enough soap or towels, whether that's paper towels or hand towels. Might mean having a stool at sinks that are too tall for your young children to reach. It might also mean putting a little hook lower down if your child can't reach the towel to dry their hands on their own. And the reason that might be helpful is then you don't have to get in there and help get the towel for them, can give them some more independence and some more pride in the skill. For children and youth who have issues with muscle tone, the other thing that we might recommend is to check how hard you have to push to pump your soap if you have a liquid soap. Sometimes what happens is that kids who are having some issues with their muscle tone might find it really difficult to do that step and coordinate that pump and hold. So there are actually some pretty inexpensive automatic soap dispensers that have become available in recent times. So that might be something to consider as well. Also ensuring the type of soap is okay for all of your members in your family and their skin. Are they sensitive to certain scents? Do you need to buy a certain type of soap? And this will be important because we're going to be washing our hands more and more often. For using tissues. So it can be helpful to place tissue boxes and even garbage cans at various locations throughout your home. This might make tissues more available, easier to see as a visual reminder that they need to be used to blow our nose, to sneeze and cough into, and having many options for garbage cans might help the tissues end up in there a little bit more often. No promises on that, but can help reduce the effort needed to get to the closest garbage can to dispose of the tissues. When out and about, it's going to be important to consider that a lot of public washrooms are closed right now. So being out in high-risk areas like grocery stores or places where there are other people, let's have some hand sanitizer and tissues available in our backpack, in our car, in our purse, and that will definitely help us have access to those things while we're out. The next place we're going to head to is using clear instructions. So this is important for a lot of different reasons. Our learners with ASD sometimes have trouble processing auditory information. I know a lot of the clients that I've worked with have told me that, they want it to just be step by step. They want it to be clear. So for giving a direct instruction, if you're asking, do you want to wash your hands, or let's go blow your nose, okay? It leaves room for your child or youth to answer, no, I don't want to do those things. And unfortunately for their safety at this point, those instructions are necessary. So we need to ensure we're phrasing it like an instruction and not like a question. There's lots of time and room for inserting their preferences into the skill. If we're talking about hand soap, do they want a certain scent? Do they want a certain type of tissues? So there's lots of ways we can help them show their preferences. Using short, clear sentences. Wash your hands, please. It's hard for some of our learners, even for myself, to be able to understand what the instruction is if it's buried in an entire paragraph. It's time to wash our hands. Remember, we have to because of coronavirus. It's important. So let's go do it right now. It's going to be hard for them to pull out that the instruction from that is wash your hands, please. And it's also important that, and I know a lot of you feel it would be important to explain to your child why we need to do these skills. Why is it important to wash our hands? Why is it important to cough and sneeze safely? There's lots of time to do that. I just want you to know that the clearest time to do that is not while you're providing the instruction. It's before you've provided the instruction. There will be some resources later on in the presentation to support that piece in that conversation. All right, breaking it down. So like I mentioned before, for some children and youth, the instruction, wash your hands or stay 6 feet away from other people is hard because it actually requires a series of smaller steps. It's not just a single instruction as we come to think of it. We'll need to look at, how do we break that down for them to help them manage through each piece. Washing your hands, as it's recommended currently, can be anywhere from 15 to 20 smaller steps involved. Things like go to the sink, turn on the water, wet your hands, get the soap. So we might need to help our children by breaking those skills down and making them a little bit clearer and easier to understand, supporting them step by step. Developing visual supports. So visual supports can mean lots of different things, and I want to remind you, we as adults use visual supports all the time to support our ability to engage fully and completely with the world. To-do lists on our phone, sticky note reminders on the front door, all kinds of different things can help us lead really full and well thought out lives. So it makes complete sense that we would use these types of things to support our children who have a diagnosis of ASD. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that. So when you're making and finding visuals, one thing to keep in mind is that you want to try and have the visuals, if there are people in them, look as much like or include people that your child respects. So for younger kids, that can be television characters, it can be superheroes. For older kids, you really want to make sure that you're providing visuals of people who look like them. So whether it's taking pictures of your family members doing the skills or finding those visuals online, that's definitely something to consider. All right. Visuals can be used to explain the 5 WHs for most skills. So we've got 5 WHs and then a how question, of course. So by identifying what purpose you want the visuals to be used for, it'll help us determine what kinds of visuals you're going to want to go about finding or developing. If you want your child or youth to know the purpose of a skill, so why are we doing the skill, visual narrative is probably what you're going to want, also often referred to as a social story. Those are great tools to support the conversation of why do we need to do the skill, also who needs to do the skill. Do you need to do it? Everyone needs to do it, and describing to them, who needs to engage in it and where you need to do the skill as well. We've provided some examples of visual narratives and social stories for each of the separate skills and just general coronavirus ones in the resources page that's attached to this presentation. All right. What do we need to perform the skill and how do we perform the skill are often covered more by what we would call a step-by-step or a task analysis. So these will be laid out in pictures or in words, depending on, what your child would prefer. And it will tell you, you need to get the soap, you need to pump the soap, you need to scrub your hands together, you need to turn off the water, all in the order that you want your child to do them in. And make sure that before we're introducing that step-by-step that we have all of the materials available, like we mentioned, in setting up the environment. When we're doing the skill can often be covered in part by visual narratives, but more completely by schedules or first then boards, which are, tools that there's a lot of recommendations for out there online. And sometimes parents have them already implemented in the home. So just adding in hand washing or social distancing into those things can help your child understand that this is now part of their life. So just some examples of visuals. Again, there's going to be more in the resources document below. Remember, we're about partway through, so if you have extra questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A box below. This is pre-recorded, so I'll be monitoring this while you're seeing it. Giving choice and including personal preferences. So we want to make sure to be creative and conscious when offering choices. So if you have an older youth or child with more advanced skills, you're going to want to offer more choices to give them more control. The option is not whether or not to do the skill, but the option is how do they want to do it? What do they want to use to do it? And so you're going to want to try and give them as many options as possible. For younger children who are just starting with these skills, either this is brand new to them or they haven't done them very often before, you're going to want to start with a single choice and see if you can work upwards from there. You don't want to make it too confusing or too overwhelming for them. for including personal preferences in the stories, videos, and visuals. So if we're going to make videos and visuals, make sure that you're including things they love, like a song or a character. Do they love a certain pattern or scent if you're going to get a box of tissues or hand soap? Make sure to consider those things when you're trying to engage your children in these skills. One of the fun things that we found is that there's a tool online, which is linked in the resources page, which will actually take a song, your child's favorite song, even if it's pop song, if it's, whatever, and it will show you how many of the words of the song need to go under each part of the skill in order to make sure you're washing your hands for long enough. So this can actually be a great way to kind of, sing the song together while you're washing your hands, have some fun, and to pull your child's interests in as well. So let's take a look. So some of the choices we can offer for hand washing are, different types of soap, colors of towels, what temperature of water do they want? Choices we can offer for tissues, like I mentioned, do they want a certain type of tissues? Do they want a certain color or box that they help you choose out at the store, or even if you bring a bunch home from your closet, make it like a little trip. And so these are all different things to consider. Of course, there are fewer choices when social distancing. It's really, do you feel comfortable going, or do you want mom to go by herself, mom or dad or whoever? And other than that, there's sometimes, we've been given the green light to do a little bit more socially distanced gathering. So you could ask your child or youth, where do they want to sit while everyone's visiting, giving them some control over the situation. For visuals, we want to make sure that we're looking for videos or pictures of their favorite characters, talking about social distancing, or, giving them instructions on how to wash their hands. And there's a ton of different videos that have come out in the last little bit, characters from favorite TV shows, celebrities even, who are talking about the importance of doing these skills to keep everybody safe. And so that can be a great way to engage your child and their interest in learning about why we need to do these skills, having someone other than you explain the importance of them. Be creative. These skills can be fun, even though they are necessary. Let's talk about teaching the behaviors. All right. So for teaching the behaviors, we're going to go through two pieces. We're going to go through modeling the skills, and we're going to go through providing help. So modeling the skills is just any time you show your child or youth how to do the skills, even explaining them step by step as you're doing them. And this will give them both important information about how to do the skill, but also the important information that you do these skills too. I think sometimes we ask our children and our youth to do things and they think, you're asking me to do this, but do you do it? Making sure that they see everyone in their family engaging in these skills and discussing the importance of them is going to go a long way towards helping them understand that this is not just for them, this is for everybody. And that these are very important behaviors that we do to keep themselves and others safe. So let's take a look. If we were going to model through washing our hands, you could have them come into the bathroom with you. You could take, your favorite soap and talk about, each step as you go along. I'm going to get my soap. I'm going to wet my hands. I'm going to scrub, make sure I'm scrubbing my palms, make sure I'm scrubbing in between my fingers, and really just describe every single thing you want them to be doing when they do the skill. The more often you do that, I think the easier it will become for your child to visualize while they're doing the skill what exactly it's supposed to look like. It's the same thing for social distancing. If they see you being really respectful of the space of others, they're going to understand that they need to do that as well. One of the things too, I always tell parents, it's hard for us to get into the mode of safe sneezing and coughing. So make sure that those tissues are available for you as well, and that you're making sure to direct your coughs and sneezes into your elbow, as it's the safest way. Providing help. So sometimes for our clients who are a little bit younger or, need a little bit more assistance, we might need to actually help them do the skill. And this can look a lot of different ways. Some children and youth might need help from a person they trust, like a parent or caregiver, to help them get through the skills by standing near them and providing lots of encouragement, recognizing how well they're doing, that they're trying, that they're really, pushing through the skill, and that sometimes it's hard to do these things. Gesturing to the next step of the skill. So if they've got their soap and they've washed their hands and they're kind of, stuck on that step, they're not quite sure what to do, pointing to turning the tap on, or if they've washed their hands completely and their hands are all wet, just gesturing to the towel can be a great way to encourage them to complete all steps of the skill. For some younger kids, you might need to give them some light physical help them, really scrub their hands by lightly holding them at the wrist and just helping to encourage them to do everything really thoroughly. And that can help them to learn the skill as well. You need to make sure, of course, that your child agrees and that they're happy to have you help them. And you can make that more fun by, again, really providing lots of encouragement while you're doing it, singing a song together. There's lots of different ways to show them that, you're really happy with how things are going, that you're proud of them, and that you're happy to help. All right, our last section, talking about positive consequences. So in ABA, if you've heard any of us talk about behavior analysis, you'll hear us use the term reinforcement a lot. And it's really important because it can be great to be able to really develop those skills. For us as people, we really want to know that the skills that we're doing and the behaviors that we're doing are helpful to other people. And the way that we can do that is by having people tell us. So making sure you're providing lots of praise and encouragement. Let them know along the way that they're doing a great job. You don't have to wait until the end of a skill to assure them that you're really happy with how they're doing washing their hands, or that they're staying away from people. So don't hesitate to praise at every single step. If you know that your child or youth really likes sensory inputs like hugs, tickles, squeezes, this can be a great time to provide these as well, always, of course, along with lots of other times also. All right, the other thing that we can do, and this is totally optional for you, we'll just provide some information on it, is tangible rewards. So special items like snacks or toys, and these can be provided for doing the skills that we've discussed. If you're going to use this type of reinforcement, let's talk about a couple of things. So you're going to want to pick a couple of special items, whether they be snacks, toys, whatever, that are for hand washing only, social distancing only, so that there's the way that they can access those specific special treats is by doing the skills that you've asked. Discussing this ahead of time and providing reminders is a great way to encourage your children to understand that contingency of remember. So you said today you wanted to choose M&Ms if we're going to wash our hands, and then even just right before. So first wash your hands, then we'll have an M&M, so that they know kind of what's coming. And this can be a really great way to make sure that they're engaging in these skills as often as they can, and that they find it fun and that they want to do them as well. If we're going to do this, what we have to be careful of, we talked about preference before, but choosing the right rewards. So providing reinforcement depends on providing access to things that your child and youth really want, that they find motivating. And the best way to figure that out, if possible, is to ask them, what kinds of things do you like? What do you want? And I'm sure, for a lot of our children, they'd be happy to tell us, whether it's through PECs, whether it's through, use of a device, or just using their words. Sometimes we make the mistake of we pick things we think that our children and youth will like, and we're not right. And then we're wondering, why aren't they washing their hands? Because, kind of for the thing that we've offered, they're just not that motivated. So if you don't want them to have candy, you can try using stickers or small dollar store toys. For older clients or older children, what I've seen families do before is offering things like money that they've made, like they've drawn up themselves, or coupons for things that are kind of a little bit bigger. So looking at, renting a movie, or having takeout for dinner. If you're wanting to save up for a game or a special bigger toy, can they collect this money or coupons for those things as well, to make it a little bit more longer to get those things, but also more rewarding for children who are a little bit older and aren't interested in having, those smaller rewards along the way. All right. So one of the things we can also do is provide incidental reinforcement. So it's hard to especially with all of the other things going on that we're managing in the day, provide that kind of very structured reinforcement where every time your child washes their hands or every time they use physical distancing or sneeze into their elbow, that you're providing them something. And sometimes that's just not going to be possible. So we can also use surprise reinforcement. And if this means that we don't warn our child that they're going to get something specifically after each time they do the skill, but you surprise them with something fun. This works really well for skills that you can't give instructions for, like sneezing into a tissue or your sleeve. You can't instruct them to do that. You're not sure when they're going to cough or sneeze, but if you see them doing the skill safely, you're going to want to have maybe something on hand to give them in the moment along with praise. And that's going to be really helpful for them in feeling like, something fun could happen at any moment, which is exciting. So let's talk about effective reinforcement. So effective reinforcement is immediate. So we're going to give it right after the child washes their hands, uses safe coughing and sneezing, or uses physical distancing appropriately. And the closer we can get our praise and our surprise or our small, physical reward to that behavior, the better it is, the more effective it is. Contingent. So we want to make sure that we're giving it, during or right after skills have happened, not before they happen. So if we've chosen something that's supposed to be special, that has to be just for those certain behaviors like washing their hands or staying physically distant, we want to make sure they're getting that when they do those skills, not before. Let's talk about being descriptive. So when you're providing praise and encouragement, we want to go beyond, hey, good job, or that was awesome, great work. Because we want to tell them exactly what it is about the skill that we liked. So things like, wow, I love how thoroughly you washed your hands, or that was really fantastic that you stayed far enough away from everybody at the park who wasn't mom and dad. Remembering to sneeze in your sleeve, way to go. And just kind of labeling what it is that you have really been happy about that they've done helps them to realize what you're praising them for, what you're giving them encouragement for, which can be really helpful. Also frequent. So especially in the beginning, things have been hard. We've been pushing through a couple months, and this is going to be for the long term. When we're trying to build these skills, you want to give that praise as frequently as possible. You want to make sure that they know that you're happy that they're trying really hard to wash their hands. You're happy that they understand how important it is to stay physically distant for their safety and for everyone else's. So make sure that you're not being stingy with that reinforcement and giving them, kind of as much encouragement as they want and as you can, to make sure that they realize how important these skills are. All right, so last reminder, so this presentation is recorded and I will be answering questions in the chat box below, so get them all in and I'll try to answer them as best I can. So I wanted to say thank you very much for joining us. This presentation and the associated resource page are available for download, just on the kind of the page that you're seeing me and the page that you're seeing the slides. Let's remember, we want these skills to be happening often. We want them to be happening, with as much choice and preference and, happiness involved as possible. These are not easy things we're asking our children and youth to do. They're not easy for us and they're not easy for them, but they are really important. So I'm really hoping that these resources will help you keep your children and your family and your community as safe as possible. And we appreciate you joining us. There are some references on the last slide. Thank you.